Welcome into another video about Activision Blizzard. I do remember that 3 weeks ago I said the next thing I would do would be about Ubisoft, but we ended that story and that video on, well, not a hopeful note. Maybe other people took some hope from it because, J. Allen Brack had resigned. Bobby Kotick gave a speech about how they're going to improve or whatever and gave a pledge. And me being the cynic I am, I assumed that it was all going to be bullshit. And here we are, something else has happened. This in regard to, obviously this is alleged because you can't prove any of this kind of stuff going on unless, you catch them on tape doing it. But it's not something I'm that surprised about at all because I assume all companies do this kind of thing. Now, in theory, this should be particularly incendiary for Activision Blizzard PR by the sheer amount of people who were originally sharing the story and speaking about it when, the lawsuit first came out. But unfortunately, with everything that seems to happen, it just kind of tapers off the interest with it. And I'm not sure if it was because big people in the Twitch community spoke out about it, and then the power of voice that they brought it to new people, and then it just kind of went from there, and everyone gave their moral judgments and that kind of thing. The stuff that's carried on and the other stuff that's come out just hasn't had the same energy, and I'm not going to say it was all performative. It's just a thing. A lot of people have their own lives. Life moves on, unfortunately, and that's why these companies are allowed to continue operating in this manner, because we just don't seem to have the energy to really put them under and hold them under pressure for long periods of time. People will still play the game, so they're directly financing these companies. I'm looking at you, Far Cry 6, which comes out October 7th. They're able to still profit and make money despite of this horrendous workplace culture, unfortunately. It does seem like insurmountable because, let's be real, it's not just the gaming industry that's just like this. The culture in Hollywood is horrendous. Some of the things that I know that have happened there, don't Google the Jeepers Creepers director, for example. Yeah, it's a regular thing, so maybe people just think that, well, nobody's helping me, so why should I help them? I mean, I've spoken in the past about how that's an incredibly ignorant point of view, but it's fine. So this is why I continue to make these videos, just screaming into the void, keeping up with this kind of thing. I'm not the only one who is keeping up with it, but, it's becoming more and more difficult. There's a certain amount of pushback for continuing to talk about this stuff when it's like, this is an ongoing story. We have not heard all of the allegations that have come out. The story needs to be kept in the public eye because the biggest gaming company in the world, being one of the most toxic, is within the public interest, especially if you like games, for example. I guess for me it's a slightly different thing of, I really don't care about Activision Blizzard at all. I never get the newly Call of Duty releases anyway. I've got Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2 remastered because it was free on the PlayStation Store. I didn't buy them. And I've never actually played a Blizzard game, so I guess for me it's very easy not to play their games because I don't have any interest in them. So perhaps, it's much more difficult for people who played years and years of World of Warcraft. But I don't know, at the end of the day it's just kind of a game, isn't it? And yeah, like, that game could be something that you escape to, but there's always so many other games that are undiscovered, made by indie developers, that are wonderful, but just due to the sheer amount of games that come on Steam, then they never get the rub that they deserve for the effort that they put in. But anyway, State of California alleges Activision Blizzard HR shredded documents. So before we get into it, let me make something clear. Anyone who says, why didn't these people just go to HR about it, needs to listen to that. They shredded the documents. The main priority is the PR of the company that pays their wages. Always has been, always will be. The idea that they care about the employees under their employ is ridiculous. Why do you think that crunch culture is a horrendous thing that we all just kind of ignore? Because it's like, some people actually promote because it's like, well, it's their passion project. It's their choice, you know. And to a certain degree, you're not technically wrong, but a lot of coercion happens. And once you're coerced to do something, you're no longer using your own free will to make that decision. If you feel that you're going to be punished, that's no longer their choice. It just isn't, right? And obviously now that the rampant sexual harassment and abuse throughout the industry as well, that's obviously got more people talking about it. The state of California here is in a very important position, and they have a little bit of pressure on them. They have the opportunity to actually do something and maybe to create some sort of change. Because if an entire state can't do anything about it, then us making videos about it or talking about it on Twitter really can't do anything about it anyway. We're just trying to keep the awareness about the situation going on as it tapers off. So yeah, stop saying go to HR. And it's not just that. One of the people who was sexually harassed was told just to talk to the person who did it to them, which clearly shows no sign of understanding the actual situation at hand regardless, right? You know, you wouldn't tell someone to go and talk to the person and work it out with the person that abused them. It's just so stupid. You think about that for more than 1 second, you realise HR is just fucking shit. And I'm not going to say allegedly shit either. Screw you. The state of California has beefed up its legal battle with Activision Blizzard and accused the firm's HR department of shredding documents related to staff complaints and internal investigations. Now, that is not the actions of a company that's committing to change, like they said in the last video that we made about this at the start of the month. Allegedly, of course, but obviously that's kind of troubling if you're during a lawsuit and you're just having all of these documents just shredded and the evidence just being lost of what's going on and the sheer scale of the problem. We were never going to truly know the scale of the problem at the company, especially if they're doing this, because obviously you've got, you know, people are afraid to speak out about it, so it's nearly always worse than what we hear about. Just keep that in your mind. So obviously California says that the documents should have been kept pending its own legal investigation. They also criticise Activision Blizzard for enforcing non-disclosure agreements which have hampered staff efforts to speak out. Again, you know, if you're already scared about, you know, speaking out, having an NDA means you can't really. Or you could break the NDA effectively, but it would create a stressful legal situation where you could possibly win if a company's trying to stop you talking about your sexual harassment. You know, that's a bad look. You could potentially win that, but most people just don't have the money to fight and defend themselves against a huge corporation. That's why these corporations are allowed to basically do whatever they want without fear, because they know the people working for them, they pay them so little that they're not going to be able to defend themselves either. And they obviously criticised them for involving a third-party legal firm, Wilmer Hale, to investigate, which directly interferes with their own efforts, which is probably the whole reason they were hired, to be honest. Buy them some time so that they can allegedly destroy some evidence. And if we go back to the last video, WilmerHale were a company that were defending other companies and saying that they didn't profit from the Holocaust. So, lovely company all round. They're obviously involved with Amazon and the whole union busting that goes on there, and it's like, you're the biggest company in the world, or one of, and you cannot afford to pay your workers better or give them better working treatments. And the fun fact about that is, both of my parents, who aren't really PR savvy, or internet savvy even, I'm glad they're not PR savvy. Imagine a disappointment I'd have if one of my parents worked in the HR department of this company. But they're not really internet savvy at all, and even they know how bad Amazon is. Like, it's becoming a cultural phenomenon. We're aware of these. This is why it's so important that people speak out about this kind of thing. And for example, there's a local job listing for Amazon in my nearest city, and it pays quite well, to be honest, but it has to, because it's back-breaking work, right? They've offered like a signing on bonus of an extra £1,000, which clearly shows they are struggling to get people to work for them. So that's fun. Whoever takes that job, enjoy that extra 1,000 that wouldn't have happened a few years ago, because their PR's having a nightmare. So California have filed an updated complaint against Activision Blizzard and have widened the language of its original documents to include the scope for temporary or contracted staff. That's interesting, and that should have been in there from the beginning, because obviously temporary or contracted staff usually get treated worse than the people that they have around for the long time, because they're just expendable, and they're not really proper employees. That's the idea that's the companies will have, obviously. Your employment with a company, personally or me, is perfectly valid, because, some people have only ever really been able to work, part-time due to chronic fatigue, like me. Although I did work full-time, they just get you to do it anyway and then wonder why you burn out. And obviously, the controversial hiring of WilmerHale, who we've spoken about, have repeatedly come under fire. First from a collective of Activision Blizzard staff known as the ABK Workers Alliance. That is a giant fuck you to WilmerHale. The people that crushed the union busting, and then they're joining an alliance to try and, get change for the workers at this company. Even if they don't work there anymore, they can then help the new generation. Then from a SOC investment group executive, Dieter Wazenegger, a major Activision Blizzard shareholder. Now, let me get this clear. Obviously, I doubt the veracity of him actually caring about what's going on here. He's saying this because it's affecting his potential investment in the company, and he wants to maximise that at all costs. So, he's doing a good thing, but for his own selfish reasons here. The firm has a sterling reputation as a defender of the wealthy and connected, but it has no track record of uncovering wrongdoing. The lead investigator does not have in-depth experience investigating workplace harassment and abuse, and the scope of the investigation fails to address the full range of equity issue. Activision Blizzard boss Bobby Kotick acknowledges that. There was an update to this story, of course. Within 2 hours, Activision Blizzard actually had responded to this. This is going to be interesting. Very, very. This was their response. Throughout our engagement with the State of California's Department of Fair Employment and Housing, we have complied with every proper request in support of its review, even as we have been implementing reforms to ensure our workplaces are welcoming and safe for every employee. Those changes continue today and include several high-level personnel changes, who I might add left. They left, so they're not really, it's a bit different than being fired. Revamped hiring and recruiting practices, requiring diverse interview panels, greater transparency on pay equity, expanded and improved training and investigative capabilities for human resource and compliance staff. Interesting. Considering what we're talking about today, that's very interesting. Created investigation teams outside of business units to support greater independence, restructured divisions to support greater accountability, enhanced review processes to include evaluation of managers by employees, clear boundaries on workplace behaviour with zero tolerance approach to harassment and others' actions that diminish or marginalise. Well, that's what they say that they're doing. We can't possibly know, to be honest. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to take them at their word for it. There's nothing to suggest that they've done anything to earn our trust. We strive to be a company that recognises and celebrates the diverse talents and perspectives that lead the creation of great, globally appealing entertainment. That should just literally, why do you need to strive to do that? That should just be the basic common position by any company. It's so weird. I mean, they obviously say that they have to strive because they've not been diverse at all. So that I get what they're saying, but I'm just making a point about the gaming industry here. That should be the lowest basic common decency for everyone getting an equal opportunity. You can't say we already have equality when you have this shit going on. We have provided the DFEH with clear evidence that we do not have gender pay or promotion disparities. Well, yeah, after you shredded it, allegedly. Our senior leadership is increasingly diverse with a growing number of women in key leadership roles across the company. Great. Including that person that spoke out against this whole thing and said it was complete bollocks. I'm sure they're a great ally to other women who used to work for George Bush, and something that I forgot to mention in this, defended America's use of torture. So she's a torture advocate as well. So really upstanding US citizen you have here in position of power. We share the DFEH's goal of a safe, inclusive workplace that rewards employees' equitability and are committed to setting an example that others can follow. I really fucking hope people don't follow your example. Jesus, Ubisoft have already done that. With regards to claims that we have destroyed information by shredding documents, those claims are not true. Well, that's okay then. Case closed. As they said it wasn't true, so it must be right then. We took appropriate steps to preserve information relevant to the DFEH investigation. Now, the question I ask for you, who are you more likely to believe? The state of California or Activision Blizzard? Depending on your political beliefs, that answer unfortunately changes. I've learnt my lesson. I'm no longer just going to simply tell you what video's coming next, because stuff like this can happen. Stories can change over the course of a few hours or so, and that needs updating, because this is a huge thing that's being thrown at Activision Blizzard, isn't it? So obviously this had to be covered. I'm sure there's countless other stories and things that have happened also. But this was the main one, that's why I've chose to carry this. I'm still continuing the break, for example, because, when you're somebody that wants to see these things be resolved and change, just the sheer scale of what you're dealing with and seeing and, recounting the stories can take its toll on you a little bit. It is rather depressing, isn't it? Because deep down we kind of know, we're kind of resigned to the fact that Activision Blizzard are going to be fine no matter what. And I'm not saying that I want them out of business over this, but I know that it's just going to continue to make money on the next Call of Duty. And Overwatch 2 is going to be a success for Blizzard, Diablo and so on. So, it does feel like we're pissing in the wind, And the thing is, because there's so little change that comes from it, we get accused of just doing gesture politics, right? As if we're virtue signaling, as if caring about workplace abuse. As someone who has been on the end of terrible working environments, I think most people watching this would have dealt with that at least one point in their lives. Just by the sheer fact that it's been normalised, we're speaking out against that normalisation. This thing that genuinely happened on the weekend. I had somebody just try to, a faux intellectual, if you will, so a man out of my own heart, said that exact thing about gesture politics and then tried to walk back from that, and I just ignored them at the end of the day, because, you know, some people are just out to defend their hobby by all means and just will not see your side of it. So why try and convince somebody that's already made their mind up? It's, you know, it's a worthless effort. It's like, for me, as somebody who's immunocompromised, I'm never going to be able to convince anti-vaxxers about the vaccine at all. All it takes is one person to have something bad from the vaccine, and then they're like, well, we were right all along. There's just no getting through to them. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope, until I see you again, I hope you have a wonderful day, effectively, and do something fun, because, you know, it's hard to live in this world a lot of the time.